does the tyrant leech king parasitize? What strange snake did tourists of Amazonia encounter? Why do they call the piara fish vampire? What essence lies in the character check due to an ant bullet? Answers to these and other questions you'll learn from this episode. Today, I'll tell you about the most dangerous inhabitants of Amazonia. Here is the tyrant king leech that can also be found in the Amazon River. This species was first described in 2010. It's believed that these leeches can suck on the mucous membranes of the host and remain in the body even after they've sucked enough blood. Thus, they grow up to 2.8 inches in length. That simply boggles the mind because initially their length is less than an inch. But how do they end up next to the mucosa? Well, in fact, there are more than enough ways. Most of all, the tyrant king leeches penetrate the nose or rectum, and they suck to the eyeballs of mammals. Of course, such a neighborhood with a parasite does not carry for itself absolutely nothing good. It causes anemia, affected organs, and other serious problems with the body. By the way, do you know what else distinguishes these leeches from all the others? I mean, besides their size. Except for the size, their main difference is the presence of a jaw with 8 teeth. Seems that, on the contrary, this should be a disadvantage for them, but in fact it's not so. With a fairly small body length, the king leeches have disproportionately huge teeth, up to 0.005 inches long. Now, I don't know what's better, to meet an inconspicuous and dangerous king leech or a more noticeable piara. Here's a look at this creepy monster that people managed to catch on camera. And he's a sport fishing object. Can you imagine? So someone deliberately goes to the place where it lives and they try their luck trying to catch the monster with their own rod. Here, probably you'll ask me, what's the big deal? Why does everyone chase this fish so much? In fact, its popularity among fishermen is explained by the fact that this freshwater fish is very difficult to catch, and it desperately resists attempts to pull it out of the water. This peculiarity is due to the fact that the favorite habitats and hunting grounds of this fish are waterscapes. Also, if you still think that it's not so dangerous, know that the piara feeds on piranhas. In length, this monster usually grows from 12 inches to 20 inches. However, there are also abnormally large individuals with a length of more than 3 feet. By the way, do you know how easy it is to distinguish this fish from any other in the river? It's enough to look at its most dangerous face and discern 2 pairs of fangs on it that are located in the lower jaw. In larger individuals, they're even more noticeable, and they can reach 6 inches in length each. No wonder the locals nicknamed this fish a vampire. The unfortunate prey is as if impaled on skewers and can do nothing about it. At one bite, the piara inflicts enormous damage, and it deprives its enemy of any opportunity to resist. All that's left is to turn the victim's head to the mouth and swallow it whole, wasting no time. Do you want to be even more surprised? Some adventurous people have this fish in their homes. As far as I'm concerned, I'd be scared to keep such a beast in my house. If you suddenly think of such a replenishment, know that the neighbors of vampire fish should be no less large and strong underwater inhabitants. Otherwise, almost immediately, it'll eat them. Oh yes, piara's prey must be a living creature. Amazon River Dolphin. Well, maybe this river dweller will help us embark on a kind and nice way. Don't you think so? It's a dolphin. Of course, I wish it were. But in the realities of the Amazon, it's impossible. This is another predator, considered the largest of all river dolphins in principle. The length of adults reaches 8 feet, and they weigh over 440 pounds. Males and females differ visually. The former prefer pink coloring, whereas the latter are grayer and darker. Despite this, at birth they're not distinguishable. The color will change only as they grow up. By the way, it will also be affected by the environment where dolphins live. Under the influence of temperature, the shade can also change. In addition, the dolphin is influenced by geographical factors. In short, these inhabitants of the Amazon can camouflage no worse than the famous chameleon. The color, although it's very interesting, is not the main feature of our guest. As for hunting, they're ready to prey on dozens of different species of animals. The size and capabilities of the prey do not play a role at all here. Even piranhas, it's quite understandable, immediately pack up and get out of his sight at the sight of an Amazonian dolphin. It would seem all clear if you're a potential prey of the Amazon dolphin. As long as you can see it, you need to run. In reality, it's not that simple. The fact is that these guys live in rather murky waters where you can see the enemy only when it's a fraction of a second from attack. This oriented fish is considered a priority prey for the Amazon dolphin. It's ready to hunt almost around the clock. And also, if you believe the experts, these creatures can communicate with other inhabitants of the river. Amazon dolphins negotiate with predators, and they join their efforts to drive whole schools of fish to the traps. Well, it's interesting. They can turn their heads 90 degrees. They can eat up to 27 pounds of food a day, and they take care of wounded fellow dolphins that fall on the shoal. And they're also quite well tamed. Even despite the last fact, Amazonian dolphins are considered extremely aggressive creatures that can easily attack people. Another one who clearly doesn't want to be ruled by some pathetic little man is the black caiman. It's a large South American crocodile belonging to the alligator family. This creepy Amazonian inhabitant grows up to 20 feet in length, and it can weigh over 990 pounds. It's believed to be the largest living member of the alligator family. This factor is already enough to make other inhabitants of forests and rivers afraid to come into contact with it. The only creatures that can be attacked are the black caiman's cubs. Their lives are not easy, but if they still manage to pass this most difficult stage, then happiness and grace immediately follow. Multi-foot predator, shackled in armor, will happily eat piranhas, snakes, eels, yes, absolutely anyone it wants for the rest of its life. And the life of a black caiman is not short. They usually live about 50 years. Oh yes, I told you that black caimans hunt everybody. However, I forgot to tell you exactly how they do it. These predators sit in the water for a long time without moving, and they wait for the moment. As soon as the enemy comes into sight, they make a lightning-fast leap and they sink dozens of sharp teeth into it. It's almost impossible to survive such an attack. Even if the opponent doesn't die on the spot, it will most likely either die of wounds in the next couple of minutes, or it'll simply lose the ability to move quickly, and it will perish as a result of a second attack. Goliath bird eater. Okay, and here we have one of the biggest spiders in the world that can still be easily found near the Amazon. To understand how big this spider is, you should know that the largest individuals of the species was found in 1965, and its leg span was 11 inches. The inhabited area of our guests is quite wide, and it lives mainly in burrows dug by him in the ground. Why in the earth? Because in this case, it'll be much easier for it to carry the bodies of insects to his lair. The Goliath bird eater, patiently waiting for the prey to come within throwing distance, stays without moving far from the entrance to its burrow. This arthropod is believed to have a strong enough venom that can kill a mammal the size of a cat. Don't worry, its venom is not that dangerous at all for humans. Yes, it's extremely stinging and unpleasant, but there will be no fatal outcome, and this is good. The neurotoxin in the Goliath bird eater's venom causes severe pain and convulsions that can last up to several days. Actually, in nature, it's the spider that's more afraid of us than we are of it. Humans are destroying rainforests where this monster lives, and they cause the spider's population to decline rapidly every year. Jaguar. Well, this predator needs no introduction. Everyone knows that the jaguar is a dangerous, strong, fast, and silent cat that you'd better not joke with. With a body length of almost 6.5 feet and a weight of about 350 pounds, the jaguar is considered the largest cat species in America, and it's the third largest in the world. Although the fangs of this cat are smaller than those of a lion or tiger, they're definitely not small. They grow up to 2 inches in length. Coupled with powerful paws and amazing speeds, the predator easily catches up and it gains the upper hand over literally anyone. However, the jaguar usually catches up at a short distance. This cat is not accustomed to long runs. It likes to set up one effective ambush. Don't think that the jaguar is just sitting in the bushes and it's waiting for the perfect moment. The cat uses its innate quietness and it's constantly on the move. It walks around its home territory and it looks around, it finds an enemy, and it begins to slowly but surely approach it. And then when there's nothing left to the target, the jaguar will make a high-speed dash, and it'll throw the opponent to the ground. Since the cat was the first to start this battle, it will almost always come out victorious. No matter how you may look at it, the jaguar needs tens of pounds of fresh meat every day, and it would be impossible to get so much without proper fighting skills. It's not for nothing that they say that the jaguar is one of the most balanced cats in the world. They can run fast, they fight one-on-one properly, and they organize a quality ambush. Harpy Eagle. Our next guest is considered by many to be a real jungle tyrant, as well as the strongest eagle of our time. According to classics, I suggest that you should not hurry. First things come first. So the South American harpy eagle is a species of birds of prey from the hawk family. Some authors consider it the largest eagle in the world by weight. The length of its body is up to 43 inches, its wingspan is about 6.5 feet, and its weight is under 22 pounds. It's scary to imagine such a feathered creature in the sky. It's not just flying, it can also skillfully fight. Its main weapon, and at the same time an assistant in this case, are claws. They can reach 5 inches in length. Now add to this the speed of the harpy's flight, the fact that it hits the target in vital places, and you get a real flying tyrant that no one can escape. The only case that a creature on the ground will remain intact is if the South American harpy doesn't want to attack it or if it simply disappears from sight. Fortunately for us, we're not its favorite meal. It prefers sloths, various small monkeys, birds, or some reptiles. Our guest waits for the first. The bird sits even higher than them. It watches carefully, and as soon as the opponent loses vigilance, the harpy eagle flies by and it takes the enemy with it. As for birds, the harpy eagle catches them on the fly. It chases them through the air. It deftly maneuvers between tree branches, and it eventually catches them. The South American harpy takes the life of ground prey like reptiles in one clear claw strike. You know, even an Amazonian giant centipede doesn't seem so dangerous after this powerful feathered creature, right? Yes, of course, this creature is much nastier. However, personally, I'd rather encounter it than that clawed harpy eagle. The centipede, however you slice it, is hardly dangerous. Not dangerous, is it? What? No way. It turns out that even this arthropod is highly undesirable to humans. It's because of the toxin in the creature's body. The Amazonian giant centipede venom contains a bunch of different elements. Thanks to them, it's perfectly preserved in the cold, but it's quickly destroyed by heat. The pain from the bite lasts up to several hours. The centipede cannot finish us off. By the way, some crazy people breed these animals at home, and they consider them cute pets. The basis of the diet of this monster is insects, frogs, lizards, rodents, and unexpectedly bats. To catch the last one, the Amazonian centipede climbs to the ceiling of the cave where the bats sleep during the day. It violently grabs the defenseless vampire, and it injects a lethal dose of toxin into its body. By the way, the centipede doesn't eat much. One bat can be enough for almost a month. Bullet ant. And here's another arthropod that's incredibly dangerous to humans. I don't know who or how it was first discovered. However, it's very good that people are finally getting information about this monster. Anyway, this ant is called a bullet for a reason. No, it's not about speed. The strength of its bite is equal to the pain of being hit by a bullet. The sting of this ant is up to 0.1 inches long. The stinging power is greater than that of any wasp or bee. On Schmidt's stinging power scale, it's the highest level. When humans first studied this monster, they even isolated a new paralyzing neurotoxin. Fortunately, these little monsters don't kill humans with their venom. They only give us an unpleasant, very unpleasant sensation. So much so that some ancient tribes have developed a special ritual. People catch ants of this species and put them in special gloves. Then they put them on a young man and wait. At that moment, the nervous ants bite the poor boy with all their might, but he stands there and endures. He realizes this is not a punishment or anything like that. It's a real test, the final exam that's set to prove to everyone in his tribe that he's finally grown up and he can be considered a real man. Tourists, as far as we know, also try this test on themselves. Would you like to test your strength together with them? What incredible creatures inhabit Australia? What are they capable of? What places are better to be avoided to keep you safe? You'll learn about all that later. First of all, Australia is notorious for its fauna. It feels like Mother Nature deliberately decided to send all the creepiest and most dangerous creatures to Australia. There's a whole bunch of them. Anyway, first things first. Let's start with crocodiles. It's in Australia, in its northern territories, one can find a saltwater crocodile, the most dangerous among all the toothy creatures on the planet. It has several titles at once: the largest land predator, the largest crocodile, as well as the owner of the most powerful bite among all land animals. In addition, it can swim in saltwater, is characterized by insane aggression, and can attack anyone in a second. Saltwater crocodiles are common in Australia, but their greatest concentration is in Kakadu National Park in the north of the country. This picturesque place is home to about 10,000 saltwater crocodiles. There are also many freshwater crocodiles. Next to them, in the north of Australia, lives someone else that's super dangerous. Get used to it, you'll hear the phrase "most dangerous" many times today. I'm talking about the cassowary, a flightless large bird. It looks elegant and personally reminds me of a hybrid between an ostrich and a peacock. But don't be fooled by this look. The cassowary is considered the most dangerous bird in the world. It's very fiery and aggressive, very fast and jumping, and it has sharp claws, which are essentially daggers. With a single blow, a cassowary can easily kill a person. If it fails to do so, the person may be finished off by a dingo dog. Dingoes were once domestic Australian dogs, but have become feral and dangerous again. They're sort of like stray dogs, only much more dangerous. A pack of dingoes can kill a human. Thankfully, they rarely attack us, but dingoes are extremely dangerous for domestic animals. For this reason, at one time in Australia, people built a giant fence over 3,400 miles long to protect livestock from the terrible dogs. The dingo is one of Australia's symbols, but it's better known for the kangaroo. These creatures are not to be messed with. Many of them are a bag of muscles. They look powerful, and they can unleash that power on a person if they don't like something. It's unlikely to be fatal, although there have been such cases, but it's better not to test the power of kangaroos on yourself. Koalas are also better to stay away from. Yes, these chubby creatures are nowhere near as strong as kangaroos, but they're still dangerous. Firstly, they have very long claws and powerful jaws, so they can do damage. And secondly, many koalas have chlamydia, which can be transmitted when attacked. You wouldn't know the koala could be dangerous, but you can tell it about these toothy creatures. Sharks, especially great white sharks, are frequent visitors to Australian beaches and coastal areas. Wide jaws, rows of teeth, and enormous size. The great white shark was nicknamed White Death for a reason. This predator can be stumbled upon in the most unexpected places, and you'll be very lucky if it just swims by. But it's not only sharks that you should be wary of in the water. There, you may also encounter stingrays. They're not as aggressive as sharks, but it's better not to approach them. It's because of the spine at the end of their tail. It's very strong, sharp, and venomous. With a powerful blow of its tail, a stingray can pierce flesh and bones and finish a human. That's how Steve Irwin, a famous Australian naturalist who was not afraid to interact even with crocodiles and snakes, died. Stingrays are not easy to see, as they spend most of their time buried on the bottom. Likewise, box jellyfish can be overlooked. Many of them are pale blue and almost transparent, so you may accidentally stumble upon them in the water. If this happens, it'll be very bad, because box jellyfish are considered the most dangerous jellyfish on the planet and one of the most venomous animals in the world. The power of their toxin is enough to finish off 60 people in 3 minutes. Australians save themselves from them by pulling special nets in the water at beaches, but it doesn't always help. Every year, jellyfish constantly sting several dozen people. In terms of venom, this monster can only compete with the Belcher's sea snake, a striped, quiet one that's afraid of people and tries not to mess with us. But if necessary, it attacks, and it can be lethal, because the venom of this snake is literally thousands of times more powerful than the venom of the king cobra itself. The good news is that there are no king cobras in Australia. The bad news is that there are a huge number of other snakes in this country, and many of them are much more dangerous than the cobra. I told you that Mother Nature put all the most dangerous and creepy creatures in Australia on purpose. Well, this is clearly seen in the example of snakes. At least 4 of the 10 most venomous snakes in the world live here. In coastal areas, you can find a coastal taipan. It's a very irritable and vigilant snake, ready to lunge at anyone, anytime. It's also the most venomous land snake on the planet, so its venom can cause death very quickly. The most venomous land snake also lives in Australia, but the interior of the continent. This is the inland taipan, a relative of the coastal psychopath. If the coastal one lunges at everyone, the inland one tries not to get involved in conflicts with tourists and prefers to hide and lead a quiet life. Probably it realizes that 1 dose of its venom is enough to send 100 people to the grave, so it uses venom only to hunt small animals. It neutralizes them in seconds. The eastern brown snake doesn't agree with the inland taipan's worldview. On the contrary, it always wants to fight with someone and attack a person. It loves to do it. This is the second most venomous snake in the world, and unlike the inland taipan, it does not hide in distant deserts. On the contrary, it often crawls out to people, ends up on the roads, settles near farms, and sometimes even visits cities. The only good thing is that if this snake attacks, the bite is likely to be dry, that is, without venom. But the snake can also bite for real, and then things will be bad. It's difficult enough to avoid these snakes, but in order to at least protect yourself from encountering them, it's better not to go to the Blue Mountains National Park in the east of the country. This is another picturesque but dangerous place because, among other things, one can find a lot of eastern brown snakes in it. There's another dangerous snake in Australia, the tiger snake. Not only is it very venomous, but it's also lightning fast. It attacks with incredible speed, which makes it a great threat to people. The bite of this snake can lead to paralysis and subsequent death. However, in case of many other Australian snakes, the outcome will be the same. It's not just the local creeping creatures that you should be wary of, but also all sorts of little things, like spiders. Australia is a real abode of different spiders. There are giant and creepy but harmless ones, and there are small but very dangerous ones. For example, the Australian black widow. You can recognize it by the red dot on its back. It's better to stay away from this monster because it has a very painful bite, and even the antidote doesn't reduce the pain. There is also one spider having a title with the words "the most." It's in Australia that the most venomous spider in the world, the Sydney funnel web spider, lives. It shares this title with the Brazilian wandering spider from South America. This small but very strong spider bites several times in a row, bites through even dense material and tissues, and injects a powerful venom into its prey. Fortunately, at least there's an antidote for it. Even insects are dangerous in Australia. Even the smallest ones, like ticks. The Australian paralytic tick, which loves blood, lives here. After drinking blood, it increases in size 10 times. After that, it goes to rest, and for the victim, the nightmare begins. They begin to have fever, headaches, spotty rashes, signs of muscle weakness, and gradually incipient paralysis develops, spreading from the legs to the muscles of the body. In particularly severe cases, a person stops moving, their speech is impaired, and swallowing and breathing are difficult, which can be fatal. The flora in Australia is much better. There are not so many dangerous plants, but there are still some. In fact, there are several hundred plants that are dangerous to health and life. But I'll tell you only about Gympie gympie. It's also known as the stinging tree. It's a nettle with broad leaves that have serrated edges. But don't think this one is the same nettle you've been stung by a few times before. This is a truly hellish and stinging nettle. Its brittle hairs contain neurotoxins and can easily puncture the skin. If the burn from ordinary nettles is healed in a few hours, after contact with the Gympie gympie, one can feel pain for several days. Sometimes it's so bad that injured people even have to be hospitalized. Australia is a truly dangerous country. And as you can see, threats and dangers can be everywhere. But how can you keep yourself safe? Is it even possible? Of course it is. As for the cities, it's important to follow a few rules. For example, here you should always close the doors tightly so that a snake doesn't get into the house. Mosquito screens are also important so that someone venomous doesn't fly through the window or crawl inside. It's better not to leave shoes on the street. A spider can crawl into them. Driving at night is not recommended because of the possibility of collision with kangaroos or other animals. Swimming in Australia should only be done at special beaches with warning signs and lifeguards on duty. Do not wear jewelry that could attract a shark. To avoid being caught in the jaws of a shark, do not go into the water with cuts. Do not go into the muddy water, a place where there are shoals of fish or where fishermen bait and fish. As for tourist routes, you should not deviate from the route of the guide and go into the wilds. It can be dangerous there. If you're going to travel through national parks, then you should wear closed shoes and tight trousers and adhere to the rules of conduct. Do not enter dense thickets, watch your step when walking on grass, do not provoke wild animals and snakes, and do not swim in random bodies of water, especially in muddy rivers and lakes. And yet, Australia is such a place that even following all these rules does not guarantee one full safety. A tourist can still be bitten by someone venomous. It's mostly venomous animals that pose a danger here. If this happens, the main thing is to act quickly. All hospitals in Australia have antidote kits, and you need to go there immediately to get an antidote. In the meantime, it's necessary to slow down the spread of the venom by giving yourself or the victim first aid in the form of tourniquets and bandages. Actually, you should not be so much afraid of Australia. Yes, this country has a lot of dangerous animals, plants, and places in general, but it's still not hell on earth. Many Australians have never encountered dangerous animals, which means that tourists have a chance as well. Living next to wild animals is relevant for Australians, and now I'll tell you how to survive wild animal attacks. Let me tell you right away that all the advice presented in this video is not a professional rescue manual, but perhaps in a dangerous situation they'll be useful. And now, let's get started. Crocodile. This predator surprises people not only by its size but also by its aggressive behavior. Sometimes crocodiles can swim in water and hunt fish, repulsing even sharks. At other times, they can wait for prey on land. And their preys are by no means weak opponents. Of course, a human can also sometimes get it. No matter how you look at it, humans are big enough, which means there's a lot of tasty stuff in them. So what to do if a crocodile attacks? Well, first of all, it's important to understand the reason for the attack. If, for example, it attacked and immediately retreated, it means it was defending itself and poses no threat. You can just turn around and run. The crocodile will stay put. However, if the fight couldn't be avoided, you should know the following. The most vulnerable part of the body of this predator is its eyes. You must act accordingly to the situation. If possible, you can hit them, try to put pressure on them with your fingers, or pierce them with a stick. By the way, there's a real-life story of how the 22-year-old guy was vacationing with friends in Cape York in Queensland, Australia. Suddenly, the guy was attacked by a crocodile. It grabbed him with its jaws and tried to drag him under the water. At that moment, the guy remembered a tip from the internet. He pressed on the crocodile's eyes. The crocodile relaxed its jaw, released the guy, and disappeared under the water. If a limb, like this guy in the story, suddenly finds itself in the mouth of the predator, you should also know that crocodiles have what's called a palate valve. It's located behind the base of the tongue, deep in the mouth. The valve prevents water from entering the throat when the crocodile opens its mouth. You can try to apply strong and painful strokes to it, which will force the reptile to let go. If this doesn't help and the crocodile begins to perform its trademark death roll, you should try to rotate simultaneously with it in the same direction and at the same pace to save the limb as much as possible. Shark. The next dangerous creature always seems invincible to me personally, unless you had some kind of weapon or other special equipment. As it turns out, I was wrong. You may have heard that the best way to defeat a shark is to punch it right in the nose. However, this is completely untrue. At the very least, if a person is underwater, they probably can't strike with the same force as on land. For this reason, a punch to the nose is rejected. It simply won't do any good. An alternative weakness of a shark is the gills and eyes. You can aim at them. Nevertheless, few people are able to fight with this big creature. Of course, you can try to hit it in the forehead and on the gills or eyes, but in most cases, if a person's close to the shore or to their boats, it's better to just turn to the shark's front and gradually swim back without sudden movements. No matter how scary it is that it will attack, almost always this strategy with the retreat has a better chance of survival than a fight with this extremely dangerous fish. Often when people give advice on how to survive an attack by various animals, one of the basic rules is that you should not panic. And yes, I myself understand the absurdity of this advice, but it actually works. No matter how scary it is, it's important to stay sane, because that's the only way to make the right decision and react in time. By the way, this advice applies to the next creature which will be discussed, namely the boa constrictor, a snake that can reach more than 13 feet in length. First of all, it will try to wrap itself around the throat of its prey. Each movement in which the person tries to get out will force the snake to strengthen its grip even more. For this reason, it's important not to panic, to take as calm and measured inhales and exhales as possible, and to plan an escape from the death loop. In our case, to divert the snake's attention, you need to get in its place and do exactly what another boa constrictor or anyone else would do. You have to try to bite the snake's tail as hard and as painful as possible. Paradoxically, the tail doesn't feel any pain in this way, but from the surprise it may loosen the grip or at all let go of its prey. The alternative option is for those who are near a heavy object like a stone. You can go the old-fashioned way and try and hit the snake on the head with it. In this way, you can either stun the creature, completely freeing yourself, or you can inflict significant damage, making it clear that the prey is not as easy as it seems. Snakes just love light snacks, and this behavior will let the wriggling reptile know that this time the snack is not so easy, and it'll retreat. Bear. Did you know that bears mark their territory? They do this by sight and smell marks. The latter are when a bear chooses different trees and marks them in a traditional way. And visual marks are when a bear rises on its hind legs and scratches a tree, thus making it visible from a distance. This is a very important process in the life of these creatures, which helps them navigate in space. And I don't envy anyone who, at this moment, catches the bear's eyes, especially if this is a person. But if that happens, there's no turning back. You now need to know how best to act. Well, if there's a relatively small bear in front of you, you have to keep in mind that the animal is also afraid. No matter how you look at it, size plays a role, and you can use it to your advantage. For example, you can retreat slowly, but at the same time try not to observe the bear closely. Thus, the creature will feel domination of the person and retreat. If you look intently at the animal, it will accept it as a challenge, and if you run away, you know what that means. If the victim is not a little bear cub but a real healthy bear like an adult grizzly, you must forget about the superiority. It's much better to pretend to be the weakest man on Earth so that the bear loses interest in the fight. To do this, simply curl up in a ball. In a similar way, by the way, a resident of Russia recently acted. According to the man, he went to the woods early in the morning where he suddenly encountered a bear cub. Apparently, neither the animal nor the man had seen or heard each other until recently. The female was with its cubs and therefore behaved aggressively. The man was quick to react. He didn't resist and he didn't run away. After the bear hit him, he fell to the ground and pretended to be dead. The bear reassured itself that the man was not a threat and walked away. The man was able to get up and leave the forest on his own. That's it for today. What from this episode impressed you the most? Let me know in the comments, and thank you for watching.